Good evening, I'm Farhana Sheikh. US and China struck a deal to speed up rare earth shipments. And how far is Iran willing to go to defend its nuclear program? And how might its move impact global security? That's our top news coming up on AWANI International. The United States and China have struck a deal to speed up rare earth shipments amid efforts to end the trade war between the world's two largest economies. Beijing has confirmed the deal, pledging to keep approving export permits of controlled items in accordance with the law. Now, US President Donald Trump says the pact was signed yesterday, offering no further details. But the deal signaled a step closer to a full trade deal between the two superpowers, formalizing initial trade talks in Geneva in early May. Earlier, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick had said that countermeasures on China will be removed once the minerals arrive. He also said that Trump intended to finalize multiple trade deals within 2 weeks as the 9th July deadline to restore tariffs paused in April nears. He named no partners, though it was previously hinted that a deal could be closed with India.
We're going to talk to them next week with Iran.
With rising tensions in the Middle East, how far is Iran willing to go in advancing its nuclear program, specifically its uranium enrichment? And what could this mean for regional stability and global security? Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh from the Middle East Council on Global Affairs shares his insights.
The whole uranium enrichment issue really started after the United States withdrew from the nuclear treaty, JCPOA. That was signed in 2015 under Obama administration. It put quite stringent international inspection regime to monitor what Iran was doing with this nuclear program to ensure that it is not diverted towards weaponization. In 2018, Trump withdrew from that treaty, and in return, Iran's response was to say, okay, well, if you are withdrawing from the treaty, we will also withdraw from it gradually. And from 2018, Iran started enhancing the uranium enrichment levels, all with the complete knowledge of the International Atomic Energy Agency. This wasn't secret. It was quite transparent. And this was supposed to act as brinksmanship. So Iran thought by doing this, it would increase pressure on the United States to come back to the new negotiation deal. So going back to your question of weaponization and the nuclear bomb, I think history tells us that once a country doesn't have a nuclear bomb, it's a sitting duck. North Korea, many people in Iran are now arguing, North Korea is not attacked by the United States. But Libya experienced regime change because Libya, a few years before the Arab Spring and toppling of Muammar Gaddafi, gave up its nuclear program. So now there are big questions being asked in Iran. Should Iran aim to have a nuclear weapon as the ultimate deterrent for the regime?
According to Shahram, Israeli and US strikes have damaged trust in international law, stalled nuclear talks, and risk triggering a regional arms race.
Iran was talking to the United States at the time over its nuclear program. So there was movement towards a new nuclear deal. So what has happened is that this has shaken confidence in the power of international rules-based system. And it has, as I mentioned, it has led many in Iran to seek the nuclear bomb as the ultimate deterrence. And if Iran chooses to go down this path, this is going to have major ramifications for the region. Many other neighboring countries would, I can imagine, would feel unsafe to have a nuclear power right next to them. And they may want to seek their own nuclear bomb. And that is going to lead to an arms race in the region, which is very dangerous for the whole Middle East.
We have more developments on Iran-Israel conflict after this break. Stay tuned.
Kelimomo datang lagi? Mungkin shampoo anda tidak 100%. Mari kita lihat. Gunalah Head & Shoulders. Menghilangkan kelimomo sehingga 100%. Membasmi kegagalan. Melindungi kulit kepala sehingga 48 jam. Supaya kelimomo dan kegagalan tidak datang lagi. Head & Shoulders.
Jiwa SME Astro AWANI kembali ke ipoh. Ayo koma jumpa teman di Aeon Mall Kinta City pada 28 dan 29 Jun. Naik taraf perniagaan anda dalam dunia SME bersama penaja utama Unify Business serta rakan strategik kami. Dibawakan oleh penaja utama jelajah jiwa SME, Unify Business, rakan digital pilihan anda.
Di dalam setiap berita yang dibawa, konteks amat penting. Kami sentiasa membawakan yang tergempar dan terkini. Pastikan Astro AWANI menjadi pilihan anda, tidak kira di mana sahaja anda berada.
Welcome back. Iran has dismissed claims that nuclear talks with the United States are set to resume following the end of a 12-day war with Israel. This comes after US President Donald Trump claims on Wednesday that talks could take place next week and that both sides may sign an agreement. Foreign Minister Said Abbas Araghchi said reviving negotiations is under consideration, but only if Iran's national interests are protected. He accused Washington of betraying Iran during previous efforts to restore the 2015 nuclear deal and lift U.S. sanctions. He also said the damage from the 12-day conflict with Israel was serious and that demands for reparations are high on the government's agenda. On June 13th, Israel launched airstrikes across Iran targeting military and nuclear facilities, just days before Iran and the US were expected to resume nuclear talks in Oman. The conflict ended with a ceasefire on Tuesday, but tensions are still high between the three parties, blaming one another for their role in the conflict. Iran's Constitutional Council has approved a plan already passed by Parliament to suspend cooperation with the United Nations nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency. With the Council's approval, the bill is now set to become a law. Council spokesperson Haditha Nazif said the bill aligns with Iran's religious laws, national legislation and constitution. He added that it also protects Iran's inherent nuclear rights, including uranium enrichment on its own soil. The Iranian parliament passed the bill on Wednesday with 221 votes in favor and 1 abstention. Under the new law, IAEA inspectors will be barred from entering Iran unless national nuclear security is guaranteed, and any future access will require approval from the Supreme National Security Council. In other news, US President Donald Trump may extend his administration's 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs, currently set to expire on July 9th. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said restarting tariffs on some nations is not critical, and the pause could be extended with the president's approval.
She warned that tariffs will resume if trading partners fail to strike deals by the deadline, though added the US has had very good and productive discussions with several key partners. Earlier this month, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who's leading US tariff talks, also hinted at a possible extension. Trump imposed sweeping reciprocal tariffs on major trading partners back in April, but granted a 90-day pause on any tariffs above 10%, giving countries time to negotiate. The UK was the first country to strike a trade deal under the new US tariff regime. China recently signed an agreement on rare earths, and President Trump has also hinted that a deal with India could be next.
We missed you a lot.
The EU has received the latest US proposal for further tariff negotiations. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen confirms this without disclosing any details and saying that all options remain on the table.
So our message today is clear. We are ready for a deal. At the same time, we are preparing for the possibility that no satisfactory agreement is reached. This is why we consulted on a rebalancing list, and we will defend the European interest as needed. In short, all options remain on the table.
European leaders meet in Brussels on Thursday to decide whether they want to push for a quick trade agreement or keep fighting for a better deal. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz advocates for a quick and simple trade deal with the US rather than a slow and complicated one, while French President Emmanuel Macron echoed the same sentiment, adding that France would not accept terms that were not balanced. The EU already faces US tariffs of 50% on steel and aluminium, 25% on cars and car parts, and 10% on most other EU goods. While still trying to lower tariffs, European officials have accepted that a 10% tariff will likely be the minimum starting point in any trade deal with the US. But Trump has previously threatened that tariffs on EU imports could rise to 50% without an agreement.
Nike says it will reduce its reliance on Chinese manufacturing for products sold in the US to offset the impact of import tariffs. US President Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs on key trading partners, it claims, could add around $1 billion to Nike's costs. Chief Financial Officer of Nike, Matthew Friend, noted that China, which faces the steepest tariff increases, currently accounts for 16% of Nike's US shoe imports. The company aims to lower that share to 9% by the end of its fiscal 2026 by reallocating China production to other countries. Consumer goods are among the hardest hit by the trade dispute between the world's two largest economies. To further mitigate tariff impacts, Nike has already raised prices on some US products and will also evaluate corporate cost reductions.
China, first row. China.
India is seeking a permanent solution to their decades-old border dispute with China. On the sidelines of Shanghai Cooperation Organization Defense Ministers' meeting in Qingdao, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh met with his Chinese counterpart, Admiral Dong Jun, stressing the need for a structured roadmap to resolve tensions. A four-point plan was proposed, which includes strict adherence to the 2024 disengagement agreement signed in October last year, covering the remaining friction points in eastern Ladakh. The plan also called for de-escalation along the line of actual control and to fast-track negotiations to finalize the boundary delineation process while addressing trust deficit emerging from the 2020 border standoff. China and India share a 3,800-kilometer disputed border in the Himalayas and have fought a war over it. While the frontier has remained peaceful in recent decades, a deadly clash in 2020 killed 20 Indian and 4 Chinese soldiers. That wraps up AWANI International. Stay tuned for reports on the rivalry strategies and the shifts behind the power affairs driving the new global order. Visit international.astroawani.com for more and be sure to follow our social media accounts at Power Affairs. I'm Farhana Sheikh. Thank you for watching and good night.